Hey, welcome to Dan's ADV. Today finds me on my Ninja 1000 SX in the Texas Hill Country. I've got a lot of bucket list rides, and one of them was the Three Sisters. And that's what I'm on today. I'll tell you more about that in just a little bit. There's going to be 4 sections to this video, and I'm going to put links, quick links, down in the description so you can quickly jump to the sections that you might be interested in. So I'm going to briefly talk about my visit to the MotoGP race, where I got to see Marc Marquez, Valentino Rossi. I'm going to briefly revisit Sport Touring Motorcycle Spectrum from Sport to Touring, hopefully for the last time. Then I'm going to talk about some of my bucket list rides, some that I've been on. Maybe I'd love to hear from you guys on what your bucket list rides are, or what your favorite rides are in the US. And lastly, I'm going to just close out with some drone footage and some footage of this Three Sisters ride, probably over some royalty-free music. So if you don't like the music, I would like to get monetized someday, so mute the music and play your own tunes. And speaking of being monetized, I'd love to get to 1,000 subscribers, so if you would like and subscribe, that would help me out. Alright, let's start with the MotoGP visit. On Friday night, I found out that I kind of had some availability for the weekend and for the first couple of days of the work week. So I decided that I would brave the rain on Saturday, drive to Austin 480 miles, and get up on Sunday and go see the race. Never been to a race, certainly not a MotoGP race. Never been to COTA, Circuit of the Americas. So that's what I did. I ended up only having a couple hours of rain, and then beautiful weather ever since. So a couple of tips for visiting COTA if you've never been, or a couple of thoughts. Excuse me while I wipe the screen. I want to make sure that we are getting good footage here, not bugs. A couple of tips, possible thoughts on visiting COTA for MotoGP. The footage that you see here is from turn 15. So you have to choose, obviously, where you want to sit, and you're only going to see a small section of the race. Turn 15 does allow for quite a few corners. Way off in the distance, you can see corners that you don't see on the iPhone footage. And then as it comes closer, you'll see the helicopter coming at you down the straightaway. And that's how you know the bikes are about to be at the first corner that you can see. And then you can watch 3 or 4 corners there progressively closer to you. I thought it was pretty great seating. The vantage point that you see is about halfway up through section 20. Motorcycle parking is free, and wow, the motorcycle parking lot was, I think, more motorcycles than I've ever seen in one place. I've never been to like Sturgis or anything. That was a lot of motorcycles, pretty impressive. And they do offer free, I already said free motorcycle parking, but also free gear check at the gate. You can drop off whatever you need to drop off and then pick it up on the way out. So pretty good setup. Enjoyed it a lot. I am a Marc Marquez and certainly a Honda fan, and so I enjoyed watching him back to form. Was not a competitive race, so maybe not as exciting, but still fun to watch. And then to get to see Rossi, I can say I got to see him ride his last race in the United States. What a career he's had. All right. Back to my apparently controversial topic on sport touring motorcycles. I said that the Ninja and the new Gixxer were the closest to a sport bike on the touring spectrum that you could buy, and I got some pushback from several different platforms. And I wanted to clarify my statements and talk a little bit about it. So let's start with a sport bike. What makes a sport bike a sport bike? In my mind, every manufacturer, not every, but 7 or 8 of the top 10 manufacturers have a bike which they are basically making so that they can stay in the racing circuit. So you're talking not MotoGP, because those bikes are one-off unique bikes, but you're talking Moto America, World Superbike, British Superbike, road racing like the Isle of Man TT. You're going to see bikes that you and I could buy at least to start with, and then modified from there. So the 4 Japanese manufacturers all have one. Of course, the Yamaha R1, the CBR 1000RR Honda, the Suzuki Gixxer 1000, the Kawasaki ZX-10R, and of course BMW has one, the S1000RR. Ducati has the Panigale V4S. So they all have a sport bike. And you start looking at what does every single one of those bikes have in common. If you make a spreadsheet, put in their geometry being the key word here, you will find that they all have between 55 and 57 inch wheelbase, 4.7 to 5.3 inches of ground clearance. They're all running 17 inch rims front and rear. And of course they all have the company's fastest, highest horsepower, 1000cc engine, lightest, most race components, and electronics wise they have the 6-axis IMU and traction control, etc. So that is what makes a sport bike, in my mind, a sport bike. A touring motorcycle, that spectrum goes all the way up to like a Goldwing or a BMW K1600, where you have all 1,000-pound vehicle. But a touring motorcycle is going to have at the very least a comfortable seating position, because you're going to be riding long distances. It's going to have wind protection and probably something like cruise control, heated grips, quick shifter. But also from the factory, if it's intended to be a touring motorcycle, would have hard luggage that's lockable. In my mind, that's what's making a touring bike. So then if you start looking at the sport bike geometry and looking at sport touring motorcycles geometry, if you really want a bike that makes you kind of feel like you're on a sport bike, but it's more comfortable and it ticks all the touring boxes, the Kawasaki and the Suzuki are the only ones that have the 4 geometry numbers that I've specified. So they've got 55 or 56, 57 inch wheelbase. They've got the 4.3 to 5.1 inches of suspension travel. And they've got 17 inch rims front and rear, and they have the 1000cc engine from their manufacturer that's detuned a bit, but it's from their race bike ancestors. The other bikes that I got mentioned to me were like the BMW 1000 XR, which ticks most of the boxes, except it has quite a bit more suspension travel, and it really feels like an adventure bike when you sit on it. Also the Ducati Panigale V4S, that has 19 inch front wheel and quite a bit of suspension travel, and the wheelbase on both the BMW and the Ducati are more like 60 inches, so quite a bit longer. But that is not to say they're not great motorcycles. In fact, most people would say they're better motorcycles. They are amazing bikes with more horsepower, probably more comfortable to ride. The geometry is that way for a reason. They're twice the price. But when I was looking for a sport touring bike, I was trying to get something that kind of felt like I was on my CBR, and I mentioned that in my original video. So that's where I looked at the geometry and decided that this bike was the bike for me. Anyway, enough of that. Hopefully we won't have to revisit the sport touring spectrum. Any motorcycle that puts a smile on your face is a great motorcycle. I don't think there's a bad motorcycle if it makes you happy. I was just looking for a specific feel and look, and that's where I came up with that kind of sport touring spectrum. I should have been more clear in my first video that I was more talking about the geometry and the look and feel, not necessarily the performance or how good or bad a motorcycle is. Both the Ninja and the Gixxer also have the 6-axis IMU and the electronics from their racing ancestors. Alright, So now, third part of this video, I want to talk about roads. If you Google the top US motorcycle roads, you will typically get in all kinds of different order, but some of the roads that are going to be recurring on almost every list: the Tail of the Dragon, going to the Sun Road. What else? You got the PCH in California and Oregon. You've got all kinds of roads through Colorado, Trail Ridge Road through Rocky Mountain National Park, Mount Evans, Pikes Peak, the Big Trail, all through the Ozarks, and you will have the Three Sisters in Texas, which is what I'm on now. I kind of would like to, in my lifetime, ride as many top roads as possible. So when I found myself unexpectedly in Texas, I pulled out my Butler map and saw that I was only a couple hours from Kerrville, I'm not sure how to say it, and that I could get to do this this Three Sister ride. I jumped at the opportunity. So rides are usually epic for one of two reasons. They're either incredibly scenic or they're a lot of fun because of the cornering. So my favorite ride that I've probably ever ridden for scenery has to be going to the Sun Road through Glacier National Park. And my favorite rides for the cornering is probably the Pig Trail in Arkansas, or possibly this ride here has been pretty epic. This ride consists of the 335, the 336, and 337, and you can connect them with a loop with 41. So I'm about to get on 41. I just came to the top of 336. So if you're interested, I don't think 41 is going to be as scenic for the rest of this video, but I'd love to hear what rides you think are epic and what your bucket list is, or what you've already done, because I would love to ride all the rides. As far as off-road, I would love to do the BDRs, all of them. My favorite so far is Colorado, and I'd love to do the Trans-America Trail, although that's pretty ambitious. And for the last part of this video, I'm just going to roll the Three Sisters portions that I've found interesting and some drone footage. So hopefully you'll enjoy this. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.